Welcome back. I don't know about you, but with kids home from school for the foreseeable future, the struggle is so real to make sure that they're learning properly, as well as, handling work responsibilities. Luckily, there is help with regards to homeschooling and everything else. Dwayne Matthews is here, and he is an education strategist. So good to have you with us. Hi.
Thank you very much for having me. Hi.
Okay, Dwayne, we're going to dive straight into this because all of a sudden, parents, we find ourselves teachers. So, what do you think is the most important thing that parents need to keep in mind as they are diving into now homeschooling?
So, the most important thing that I say, Melissa, is coping strategies. One of the things that parents want to do is they want to dive right into the actual topics and that sort of stuff right away. But I think the most important thing is coping strategies. Bring your coping strategies to the forefront. And that could be mindfulness. It could be things like exercise. I mean, even having informational boundaries. The next thing that I say is really important is to have a can-do mindset, to decide that whatever you have in your house, whatever resources you have is enough. Typically, a lot of parents start thinking, I need this, I need that. What you have is enough. Work with what you have. And then the third thing that I really focus on is support networks. Make sure that you have your own support networks as a parent, and make sure that your children have support networks as well.
Here in Ontario, Dwayne, teachers are providing learning assignments. They're using different ways of doing that. The kids are getting work on a daily basis. But for parents who maybe want to go beyond that kind of content, what do you suggest as far as homeschooling goes?
The first thing that I would suggest to parents is to divide the day into 4 themes, and 20% for the first theme, 80% for the second theme, or the second half of the theme. And what you want to do is the first part, you want to think about language and math, really the basic fundamentals to keep the learning going, the reading, the basic math. And then you want to look at projects, creative projects, and what I call exponential technology projects. So projects on challenges, big challenges in the world, and how they can solve those things, and to have those projects be long over time. An example, my son right now is working on teaching himself how to play the piano. So he had to figure that out. He had to go find a specific app. He had to test the different apps, and then he has to do that over the course of a month for an hour a day. So these are examples of projects that can take a lot of time, and they fill up. There's a lot of rich learning, and the students are able to do that while parents are on conference calls and working and the like.
I'm using that one. Well, now I got to write that one down, Dwayne. The other one is grade level expectations. There's a fear that we might not send the kids back to school at all this year, leaving a good chunk or maybe a quarter of the school year behind. So now there's a lot of questions from parents like, well, what is the basic expectations and skills that my child needs to have to be able to go back to school whenever that is? So where do we find that information about whether it's that math and then that literacy portion? What do we need to make sure our kids get by okay?
2 parts to that. The very first thing is it is unlikely that we're going back to school this year. And so, parents, teachers, educators, everybody has to prepare for this. One of the great resources that I found is a resource called mynelson.com. And Nelson is a textbook company. They've been around for about 100 years. All the curriculum is Canadian. All the content is Canadian. It's all there, and they've opened their curriculum up for free online until June. So parents can go in there. There's a code. You go in, and it's everywhere from curriculum from Newfoundland all the way across to Vancouver. They can go in, find different grade levels, and it's attached to the expectation, so parents can follow along there. That's a great resource.
That's a really great one. Okay, sometimes kids don't want to learn, or there's drama, there's tears, they don't want to do it. So now parents are like, oh my gosh, I'm going to turn my kid off of learning. Help us out here.
This is a question that I get all the time, and I struggle with it myself. And, it's really important to realize that this is a unique situation, and it requires unique strategies. The dynamics of the family has changed. The stress levels and the anxieties are much, much higher. I mean, just going to the grocery store is a 3-hour I Am Legend ordeal. So what we want to do is we want to create a social and emotional plan. We want to have a social and emotional plan, and we want to be very intentional about that. A great resource for this is CAMH. CAMH stands for the Center of Addiction and Mental Health. Their website has a fantastic resource at the beginning as a starting place. But the next thing that I like to tell parents is do not focus on new learning, really focus on filling the gaps. Now, if you have not gotten 100% all the way, you have gaps in your learning. So explain to the children, you know what, now is a great time for us to go back and fill those gaps. And that really helps to boost the confidence and let children know, you know what, I've learned a lot during the year and there's just a few things I need to tighten up on. And I think that's going to really, really help students going into September.
That is a great strategy, Dwayne. Really, really good stuff. The ministries across the country, for the most part, have given timelines or outlined how long it should take for kids to complete their work. But here's the thing, what if your child is taking way longer than those guidelines might suggest?
There's going to be variations in completion. There's going to be a lot of variations in completion. And the reason for this is there has not really been one specific guideline for all the teachers to follow. Most of the teachers are just learning this online type of presentation, asynchronous and synchronous, right? On the job, on the fly since March 12th. So it's brand spanking new. One of the things that I say to parents is really help their children to ask questions, to think about the learning, and to be patient. And also mental health, mental health. There's a lot of stress. Some days students are going to be very, very productive. Other days, it's going to take a little bit longer for students and for parents. So to be patient with yourself, there's no precedent for this. Be patient, mental health, and fill those gaps.
I have a teenage daughter, Blaze. You may have seen her walk in just a second ago. But on that note, a lot of parents of teens feel like they're unprepared to teach higher subject levels. What do you tell them, Dwayne?
I would say that, you know what, to be a teacher, it typically takes 2 degrees. You're not going to be able to do this in 6 weeks. So cut yourself some slack. What you really want to do is you want to focus on your own wisdom. As an adult, you've developed some skills and tools as to how you solve problems. And you really want to bring that to the fore. How do you solve problems? And, ask yourself questions like, what am I trying to do? Who has done it? What did they do? And what are my next steps? The other piece is to think about the fact that a lot of the learning is now on video and online. In class, you're sort of restrained by the class and the time. Now you have 24 hours to try and figure it out. You can toggle videos back and forth. You can ask questions. You have the internet. It is a huge resource. So use the internet as a tool and really start thinking through mental frameworks and asking yourself the questions. This is a great opportunity for students to learn how to do that with not a lot of accountability and stress on the other end, because the educators, the schools, the universities, everybody's in the same boat. So this is a great time to experiment with learning how to learn.
And you were mentioning screen time. Do we need to limit that given there is so much great resources available online? Where's the line for you?
So for me, I say that all screen time is not created equal. And what I do is I use the screen time app on my iPhone where I manage and monitor everything. Everything that comes in, if my son wants to download an app, he has to ask me permission. It pops up on my phone and lets me know. And I really manage. And I start to separate entertainment. I start to separate social. And I start to separate education. And I find the right space in between that's right for us. I think that's really, really important. Technology is a tool, much like books were brand new technology 600 years ago, and we just have to figure out what's the best way to use it in the context and the job that we'd like to get done with it.
Dwayne, we don't have a lot of time left, but want to get this question in because this is an especially challenging time for parents with kids with special needs. So any quick tips for them?
Most parents with kids with special needs, if their students are identified, they would have something called an individual education plan. In there are very specific strategies as to what they can do at home to help. I would go back and really get familiar with those individual strategies. Next, there is a great resource online called understood.org. I find it very, very rich. It's super helpful. There are lots of anecdotes in there with other parents There are lots of stories, things about executive functioning. It's a great place to start. And you can also reach out to the folks at understood.org. I would definitely suggest that. And then the other thing I would say is make sure that you set expectations with your work. Make sure that you set some expectations with yourself, and you be really, really patient with yourself. And again, remind yourself that this is absolutely unique. There's never been a time like this in history. And so to be patient with yourself.
Dwayne, thank you so much. Really appreciate all your tips and advice. And if you want to see everything that Dwayne had to say, see his tips, head to our website, thesocial.ca. We're back right after this.
Thank you.